Otto Skorzeny here. My name is whispered in the dark corners of history, among tales of ruthless missions and secret operations. Some call me a hero, others a villain. But life is rarely that simple. My story? It lives somewhere in between, painted in shades of gray. It was 1943. The world was at war, and Germany was losing ground. We were in a desperate fight to change the course of history, and when all seemed lost, Adolf Hitler turned to men like me, the ones willing to do the impossible. Our orders were clear: save Benito Mussolini. The weight of that mission settled heavily on my shoulders. Gathering my team under the heavy clouds of impending battle, the air was thick with tension. Our target, Gran Sasso, Mussolini's prison, hidden within the unforgiving mountains. Every man knew the risks. Every heart beat in time with the weight of our task. We were ready to rewrite fate. As we boarded the gliders, a mix of excitement and dread coursed through my veins. Each man understood the stakes. We weren't just fighting for ourselves, but for our country, for our families, for freedom. My heart raced as we prepared for takeoff, the mountains looming ahead, dark and foreboding. We had come too far to turn back now. The engines roared to life as we accelerated down the makeshift runway, the ground vanishing beneath us. We were airborne, soaring into the unknown. The mountains stood tall like ancient guardians, but I had faith in our training. We were prepared to face whatever awaited us. Gran Sasso emerged from the mist, a colossal fortress silhouetted against the dawn. I felt the collective breath of my team held in anticipation. This was no ordinary target. It was Mussolini's prison, a stronghold guarded by nature and men alike. We were here to confront tyranny, to bring him back into the fold. But would we succeed? As we flew closer, the harsh reality set in. The Italians would soon realize they were under threat, and we had to act fast. I surveyed the landscape, each cliff and valley a reminder of the treacherous path ahead. We needed precision and speed. The clock was ticking, and the stakes could not be higher. I went over our plan once more in my mind, each detail etched into my memory. The gliders would touch down on the plateau, but the real battle would begin once we set foot on the ground. The Italians were no amateurs. They had fortified every inch of this mountain. But we were here to break through those defenses. Glancing at my men, I saw their resolve mirrored in my own heart. This was more than a mission. This was our chance to alter history. We knew what we were risking, but we also understood the urgency of our task. There could be no hesitations, no doubts. We would take action. As we neared the landing zone, my heart raced with the gravity of our mission. I signaled the pilot. We were on the brink of something monumental. The time for talk was over. Now we had to act. History awaited us. The glider touched down with a jolt, skidding on the rocky plateau. We had arrived, but the battle was far from over. I yelled commands, and my men sprang into action with the precision of a well-trained unit. The element of surprise was on our side, but it wouldn't last long. Every second mattered. I led the charge, adrenaline coursing through my veins as we raced toward the compound. The wind whipped around us, and I felt the weight of the mission on my shoulders. We had to move quickly, decisively. We were vulnerable now, but we had no choice. We had come too far to back down. The fortress loomed ahead, its walls towering like a giant's hand ready to crush us. But we were determined. I signaled my men to spread out and secure the perimeter. Each heartbeat echoed in my ears, reminding me of our purpose. We were here to rewrite history. As we breached the compound, gunfire erupted around us. The Italians had been alerted, and the air filled with the chaos of war. I shouted orders, coordinating our movements like a conductor leading an orchestra. We were outnumbered, but we had the advantage of surprise. Through the smoke and debris, I caught a glimpse of Mussolini. He was alive, but the clock was ticking. We needed to act fast. I raced toward him, my heart pounding, determined to bring him back to safety. This was our moment. Failure was not an option. With Mussolini secured, we had to execute our escape plan swiftly. Time was not on our side. I gathered my men, outlining our route back to the gliders. The stakes were higher than ever. We were now targets, and every second counted. The narrow paths through the mountains were treacherous, but we had no choice. I felt the weight of responsibility for Mussolini and my men. Every decision I made would have consequences. I could not afford to falter. As we navigated the rocky terrain, we heard the distant sounds of pursuit. The Italians were regrouping, and we were racing against time. I urged my team to move faster, adrenaline fueling our resolve. We had come too far to let fear dictate our fate. I turned to Mussolini, who was struggling to keep pace. "You must stay strong," I urged him. "We're almost there." His presence was a constant reminder of why we were risking our lives. We were not just soldiers. We were part of a larger narrative. Finally, we reached the gliders. I could see the relief on my men's faces, but we couldn't let our guard down. We were still in enemy territory, and the fight was far from over. I rallied my team, reminding them that victory was within our grasp. Just as we prepared for takeoff, gunfire erupted from the trees. The Italians had caught up to us, and we were in a deadly standoff. I felt my heart race as bullets whizzed past us. This was it. We had to defend our escape. I signaled for my men to return fire while I focused on getting the glider ready. Every moment was a dance with death, but we had trained for this. We needed to protect each other and ensure Mussolini's safe return. With every burst of gunfire, I felt the weight of my responsibility. My men were counting on me, and I could not let them down. I focused on our target, the sky. It was our only path to freedom. As I saw the glider's engines roar to life, a surge of hope ignited within me. We were on the cusp of escape, but the Italians were relentless. The air was thick with tension as we fought to hold our ground. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, our glider lifted off the ground, ascending into the safety of the sky. The adrenaline surged through my veins as we soared higher, leaving danger behind us. We were escaping the clutches of history. As we flew away from Gran Sasso, I turned to Mussolini, who was visibly shaken but grateful. "You're safe now," I assured him, but deep down, I knew this was only the beginning of a long journey. The war was still raging, and we had much to face. In the skies above Italy, I reflected on the mission. We had defied the odds, but at what cost? Lives had been lost, and the shadows of war loomed over us. I was proud of what we had achieved, but the burden of our actions weighed heavily on my soul. Back at the base, we were met with a mixture of relief and scrutiny. The mission had been a success, but questions lingered. I knew that the lines between heroism and villainy blurred with each decision we made. As I debriefed my superiors, I felt the scrutiny of their gazes. They wanted to know every detail, every choice made in the heat of battle. I recounted our mission with pride, but I could sense their skepticism. In war, heroes are often painted in shades of gray. I returned to my quarters, the weight of my actions sinking in. The war had changed me, and I was no longer just a soldier. I was a part of history. I understood that the stories we told would shape how we were remembered. As I sat in solitude, I pondered the nature of loyalty and betrayal. I had risked everything for a man who had led Italy into chaos. Was I a savior or a fool? My mind raced with conflicting thoughts, and I understood that history would judge us all. I recalled the faces of my fallen comrades, the sacrifices they had made for a cause that seemed increasingly uncertain. In the name of loyalty, I had gambled with lives. The burdens of war were heavy, and I felt their weight pressing down on me. In that quiet moment, I realized that my journey was far from over. The world was changing, and I had to adapt. Every choice I made now would ripple through time, shaping not just my destiny, but the destiny of many. I looked at the stars outside my window, a reminder of the vastness of the universe. I had to find my place within it, to carve my path amidst the chaos. The fight was not over. It was evolving, and I needed to evolve with it. Determined, I decided to embrace my role. I would not shy away from the choices that lay ahead. My story was being written, and I would take charge of the pen. Word came down from high command. Another mission awaited us. I felt a surge of adrenaline at the prospect of diving back into the fray. The war was relentless, and I knew I had to face it head-on. We gathered in the briefing room, the air thick with tension. The objective was clear: infiltrate enemy lines, gather intelligence, and return. The mission was dangerous, but we were veterans now. We understood the stakes. As I looked around at my men, I felt a sense of camaraderie that transcended fear. We had faced death together, and we would face it again. I knew that we were stronger as a unit, bound by shared experiences. The mission was a risk, but it was also a chance for redemption. We would gather information that could turn the tide of the war. I felt the fire in my belly as I prepared for the task ahead. We boarded the aircraft, ready to soar once more into the unknown. With every mile, I felt the weight of history on my shoulders. This was not just a mission, it was a chance to redefine our legacy. The plane soared through the night sky, and as we neared the drop zone, I felt the familiar rush of adrenaline. We were on the brink of danger, but I welcomed it. The thrill of the mission overshadowed the fear. As we descended, the landscape below came alive. Enemy territory awaited us, and we were about to become ghosts in the night. I felt a sense of purpose guiding us, a mission beyond ourselves. Touching down silently, we moved like shadows through the darkness, each step calculated, every breath measured. The air was electric with anticipation. This was what we had trained for. As we navigated the terrain, I couldn't shake the feeling that our fate was intertwined with the tides of history. We were part of something larger than ourselves, a struggle that would shape the future. With each heartbeat, I felt the weight of our mission. We were not just fighting for ourselves, but for generations yet unborn. I was determined to honor the sacrifices of my comrades by ensuring our success. As we completed our mission, I understood that this was just one chapter in a much larger story. War had its price, and I had paid dearly.